welcome to another edition of Active Living. We got a great show for you today. We got Ron and Gloria Spittler here. They just finished a grand tour of Europe on a riverboat. So welcome to our show.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks for
you,
inviting
George.
us.
Can you tell us about this tour that you just finished?
Well, we decided a year ago to celebrate our 50th wedding anniversary by doing this, make it a special trip. And so we picked out the one that goes from Budapest to Amsterdam, 14-day tour, 16-day tour. And we added 3 more nights in a bed and breakfast in Amsterdam to kind of wrap things up. We went through Gate 1, which is one of the typical tour cruise boats,
right.
And it was very, very good choice on our part. And we went through 5 countries between Budapest and Amsterdam, 1,100 miles of river.
Wow.
And the Danube, Main, and Rhine rivers were the rivers we were on, and 68 locks. Most people think about a river cruise and they think, well, you just go from town to town, you do things, you keep going, and there's so much more. There's so much more. We're trying to throw a little bit of that in here. But the 68 locks blew my mind, and one of them was up to 62 foot of a lift.
Wow.
We went upstream first to 1,300 feet, then downstream to the North Sea level at Amsterdam.
Wow.
105 passengers on the boat.
So Gloria, did you like this trip?
I did.
Did you?
I really enjoyed the smallness of the boat. It was easy to meet people. There were only 105 passengers.
Oh, great.
So you got to sit with different people at, at dinner, breakfast, lunch, and have conversations. And we were thrown together on the buses as we toured.
Right.
And so I just felt like it was a real comfortable way to see places we had never been to before.
So one of the advantages, I assume, is you never have to move your luggage once you get there.
No, and it all fit inside this small little room. Everything was perfect. We had great service. We all had large windows to look out of to see the view as you're moving slowly down the rivers, which was great.
So where did you get on the boat? What city?
We started in Budapest.
Budapest, okay.
And we had a day and a half there, and we spent time there just walking around looking at things, and it's a typical European community with lots and lots of big old buildings and a big marketplace inside, and this one with lots of food and other goods in it. And then we took a bus and walking tour on the next day before we sailed. And we got to see the Parliament building and Royal Palace and some of the other highlights in the city, which we have about 1 million pictures to show you if you want to see those.
Right.
Yeah, and then our trip concluded in as far as our visit at Budapest with a night trip down the river. And friends of mine have said it's the most beautiful sight at night you'll see, and it truly was. We saw the Chain Bridge and the
Right.
Royal Palace lit up, took some pictures, and then the Parliament, which is the second in size to and modeled after the British Parliament in London, was absolutely gorgeous. It just was really fun.
That's the one that kind of sits right on the river, isn't
Yes.
it?
It is.
And yet it's all lit up at night?
Yes.
Yeah, and that's on the
Yes.
Pest side. It's Buda and Pest.
Okay.
So
Right.
people don't know that.
Right. What amazed me was that there are 8 bridges that connect the 2 cities.
Right.
And Buda is the side where people live, and Pest is the side where they work, the commercial side of it.
Right.
But these bridges each of them had their own personalities. And yet, during the World War II, when the Germans were being routed out of there, they bombed all the bridges.
Right.
So they had to all be
Right.
rebuilt, as did they had to rebuild the palace also, because that was heavily damaged just, with the war. But it's amazing to see how much has been rebuilt and to look like it was in the past.
Right.
And they just all knew this is what had to happen. And all of these cities we visited were just amazing to us, because here we just tear down and do something different. So
I was there about 2 years ago, and one of the things that surprised me is I was walking through one of the parks, and there's a huge bronze statue there of Ronald Reagan.
Yeah.
I don't know if you got to see that or
We
not.
missed that.
No.
But yeah, it was great.
Yeah, it's interesting what they
But it is a very
choose.
nice city.
Yes, it was beautiful.
And one of the things that we saw too is when you got down towards the river, there was a bunch of things along the river, shoes along the
Shoes.
river.
Yes.
Saw that.
Did
Yeah.
you see that?
Yes, because they had a very huge Jewish population
Right.
there. And we went through the Jewish museum and the Holocaust museum there. It was very interesting to see. It was very saddened, of course, but
Right.
they reduced to like 70,000 Jews from hundreds of thousands living there
Right.
originally. So that was
Well, the story behind the shoes is really sad too, because they marched Jews down in the middle of winter, had them take off their shoes and jump in the river or be shot.
Yeah.
Right.
And they drowned, and there were, I guess, thousands of them that died this way, so the
Right.
shoes were a monument to them.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So anyway, it is a beautiful city, from what I could see.
Right.
What impressed you the most about Budapest?
Oh, I guess just the magnificence of the buildings and
Yeah.
the age of everything, and to remember that this was all part of a major war,
Right.
and so much was rebuilt.
Mm-hmm.
It's just kind
Right.
of boggles the mind when you think about the age of Europe compared to this country.
Now you cruised out of there, and from there, where did you go?
Well, we if you look at a map of the area, we're covering a great portion of the rivers, and you know, people think about maybe you can walk along the boat if you want to during the day. These boats travel 10 to 12 knots, or actually 12 to 14 knots. They move right along.
Right.
Because 1,100 miles is a long way to cover. But Bratislava was our next stop, and Gloria's got a couple of notes about that. But we were triple docked when we stopped there, and our boat was the Sound of Music. So triple docking means you have to go through 2 other boats to get to shore.
Right.
And we did that a little bit. They say never go to bed at night with your drapes open, because you might wake up the next morning
And-
with
oh,
the stateroom
hello.
right next
Good
to yours.
morning.
Somebody looking at you,
Yes,
right?
good morning.
So
Right.
keep that in mind.
It's interesting.
Yeah. Bratislava is the capital of Slovakia, and it was previously Czechoslovakia.
Right.
But then it was separated in 1987, so now you have the Czech Republic and Slovakia. And Bratislava was a pretty cool city. It's just lots of culture there. Of course, always lots of churches
Right.
and old buildings. But we really enjoyed our tour. They're known for their blackcurrant wine, which we bought
Really?
a bottle of. Yes, and then also for their chocolates, which they say won some awards. But it was I think there are 400,000 people in Bratislava.
So that's a good sized city.
Yes, and they have 700 statues of various kinds. There was one even of Hans Christian Andersen. We didn't understand that, but he just went to visit there, so they made a statue. They put a statue of him
Right.
there, and that was kind of fun to notice that I guess they have a sense of humor, because they put these things in that had nothing to do with their history.
Really?
But it just kind of fit. They just kind of fit it in there somehow.
Yeah, and the guides were terrific all along the way. We had different guides almost every stop, and they spoke very fluent English. And we had these whisper boxes, you call them, with the
Right.
earplugs, and we
Right.
could hear very clearly, and it really helped make the tour so much better.
So every city you stopped at, you had a tour that was organized, already
Right.
organized by the company that's
Exactly.
doing
Yes.
the tour.
Yes.
Yeah,
And
that's
then
great.
we always had free time afterwards to wander around on our own.
Okay.
After the tour was over, so you had a little more flavor
Right.
of where you were visiting, which was good.
Yeah,
So they just-
sounds great.
And
Yes.
she mentioned one happy street worker that we took a picture of. I don't know whether you call it a statue or not, but he was down there sticking his head up out of a manhole cover and looking up to admire things walking by.
Yeah, I saw that.
People would rub his nose for good luck. I don't know.
So his nose is real shiny because
Yeah.
everybody rubs his nose.
Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
just
I
kind of
remember that one. That was a funny one.
Yeah.
When we went over, we had a Mr. Bill with us. I don't know if you remember
Yes.
Mr.
Yes.
Bill. But
Yes.
we had Mr. Bill with us, and
Yes.
we used him in some of those shots.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
anyway,
picture him
so
getting
from
in
there,
trouble.
where do you go?
That would be
From
Vienna,
there, we're into
yeah.
Austria.
Austria,
and we're
okay.
into Vienna, which is the capital. And of course, it's a very cultural city. That's what they prize themselves on being known as, for music, and for architecture, and for pastries. And the music, of course, would have been Mozart, who moved there when he was young, along with Beethoven and Wagner and Strauss and
Right.
and Schubert. And then the pastries were the Sacher Torte, and that was first baked at the Hotel Sacher by their bakery chef.
Okay.
It's supposed to be a very famous torte, but they say it's just chocolate cake with something, so you can whatever. It's not that special, but people think they have to go there just because it was first made there.
Did you get a chance to go to any of the concerts or to any of the concert halls?
Yes, we went to the concert hall that housed the Viennese Residence Orchestra.
Okay.
And we had, it was wonderful music. It was Wagner, and it was Mozart and Strauss. And
Fantastic.
so we had some wonderful music along with some ballet and also some opera. And they were all wearing the costumes that fit with what they were singing or playing. It was just wonderful.
Fantastic.
It was a great, and the concert hall was just gorgeous.
That's the one thing I missed when I was there. I didn't get to the concert hall.
Oh my gosh.
But it was,
It was wonderful. That was a real highlight of the trip.
Yeah.
Just because we had a chance to do that very easily from the boat. You know, we just took a bus and we were dropped off there. So it was very good.
sounds great.
Yeah, it was.
And of course, you have to pay attention when people say eat here, have lunch here, or have a meal there, because they're special places. And Figelmüller's in Vienna has the best schnitzel.
Oh,
And so we went in there for lunch and got schnitzel with a glass of wine, and we shared one schnitzel. It was to die for. It was wonderful. So we did miss a few lunches on the boat.
But it was.
that sounds great.
Yeah, it
So the food, I understand, has got to be great over there, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yes.
every little town or city has their own specialty.
Yes, they do. Between pastries or some other kinds of meats, main dishes, right? They do.
Uh-huh. So, anyway, from there, I assume you just continue down the river. Of course, Austria is a beautiful area.
Right.
You know, did you get into the countryside at all, or were you mostly just along the river?
Well, we were along the river, but we actually took some by bus into some areas. We stopped at a town called Dürnstein. And Dürnstein is a little village in the Waha Valley, and that's where they grow a lot of their grapes.
Okay.
And they're usually mainly white grapes, Chardonnay and Riesling. And it's a UNESCO World Heritage Site, so it's been preserved. It was there's a beautiful castle above Dürnstein,
Right.
and it's in ruins. But so some of us hardy souls were told we could climb up there. So I climbed up there. It was tedious.
Did Ron go with you?
No, Ron didn't
I
go.
hung back.
No, but I
I
did.
chickened
It
out
was-
this
it
time.
was
Okay.
It was cool to get up to the top because, of course, it's in ruins. And we were told that Richard the Lionhearted had been captured during the Crusades, and he was imprisoned there.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Okay.
And so he was rescued by his servant Blondel, and there's, I guess, a big story about that. But that was kind of cool to see this castle that was from the Crusades, and it's still standing. So that was a long time ago, and it was a neat little village, and they're famous for.
For their apricot wine.
Oh, really?
Apricot brandy, I mean. We did buy a bottle and bring it home.
Some of that brandy over there is pretty powerful stuff.
Oh, it is. It
Right,
is. And
right.
Dürnstein was my favorite stop. It really was. It was a small 16th century community, but you could take a picture at every building, and I did take a number of them. Of course, there's very few you would allow me to have, but
Yeah.
I was just in love with that place. It's just
Yeah.
a photographer's dream, and they were giving away tastes of chocolate.
Yeah.
And that sort of thing. So, of course, I took advantage while Gloria was hiking.
What impressed me is a lot of the towns along the river had buildings with the watermarks as to various flood stages.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. Yes.
And some of the flood stages that were there were just unbelievably high.
Right.
You know,
Right.
like up to the middle of the second floor in some of these
Oh, yeah.
buildings.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. We
Yeah.
saw some of that,
Yes,
and it
we
was
did.
Yeah.
incredible.
We did. It was very interesting. Dürnstein was a neat community, and it was. What we were told about the Danube is that it's it's a less busy river than the Rhine, and so it's a very pleasant sight along the way. You see people biking and walking everywhere.
Yep.
That's what they all do. You can see cars off in the distance, but right along the river there are all these wonderful paths, and you
Right.
see bicyclists and people walking with their dogs or whatever.
Fantastic.
Yeah, it was. So they're always outside. They really like the outdoors.
Right.
They appreciate it.
Let's talk about Melk a little bit.
Well, we again took a lot of pictures inside and out, but Melk Abbey is right up on top of the hill overlooking the village of Melk, and it's a monk abbey. It was a palace turned into a Benedictine abbey many years ago. It has an active school. There were 600 boys and girls, and 12 monks live there, and the monks around the area do teach there. But it's a beautiful building and well laid out. It has a great library. And it's an institution in that area. And then from there, we had a bus to go up to it, and then we took a long walk down to Melk and to the ship. We had a lot of opportunity to go up and down cobblestone streets and stairs and everything. and maybe it's a good time to.
It gets you in shape.
Yeah,
Right.
well, yeah, it helped a lot. But you know, we didn't talk about the food on the ship and a couple things there, but maybe it's a good place to throw
Yeah,
those in real quick.
how was the food?
We had a chef who worked in a tiny kitchen. Now, we're talking about one of the smaller boats with 105 people. He made the most delicious meals and several choices each meal. It was all gourmet food, and in, I guess it was 4 courses, and then all of the wine you can drink with your dinner. And
All the wine you could drink.
yeah,
Oh,
good
Or
s-
beer,
all
whatever.
good stuff.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
And they had
sounds
happy
great.
hour almost every night on the boat. We had entertainment with a pianist. We had entertainment kind of shipped in sometimes overnight, which was very good too.
Wow.
And one other thing that's worth talking about is every evening before dinner we had a 15-minute review of what we're going to do the next day.
Okay.
Then we had a written document when we came back from dinner, which outlined the next day's activities, which was really good, really helpful. It was a great crew on that ship. So going back to the trip, our next visit was in Salzburg, which means salt fortress, and the term worth his salt, or is it
Right.
worth your salt in weight or something, you're worth your weight in salt. That used to be the currency because salt was so valuable for preserving meats and everything else. And there's a fortress on top of a hill that is kind of the major view of the city. And we went in there and took a tour. And Mozart was born there, and music defines the city now. We saw Hotel Bristol, which about everyone that's important stays there, and it included the Sound of Music cast because they filmed the Sound of Music there.
Oh, really?
And we went into the garden, which looks back towards the fortress, excuse me, and off to one side of that were the steps and the fountain where the Sound of Music children sang Do Re Mi.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
And we got a
Okay.
kick out of that.
Wow.
Of course, we have pictures at home. And then,
Right.
it was just a beautiful city. And we ate lunch at the oldest restaurant in Europe,
Really?
803. That's 600 and some years before Columbus came here. However, the food was fresh.
That's great.
And we really had a good time. But
It didn't store it that long, huh?
No, they
no,
didn't.
no.
No.
And we took the funicular up to the Hilltop Fortress and took one picture of the.
What's a funicular?
It's a rail, an angled
Oh,
rail.
okay.
That more or less an elevator on rails to
Okay.
get you to the top, and very efficient way to get up there. And we could show a good picture of what the community looked like, including the river.
Okay.
So that was one of the highlights, was be there where the Sound of Music was cast.
The city is very proud of having Mozart being born there because he composed his first song when he was 3.
3?
Yes, an opera by age 14.
Wow.
But so they have a festival every year based on Mozart. Their festival is very well attended. Thousands of people attended every year, and so even though the whole family moved to Vienna when he was by 14, I should think already in Vienna, but it's pretty cool to have.
Yeah.
We saw his house, and they have all these other things named after him there. So they really are proud of him being part of their city.
Well, well, I guess it's a lot to be proud of.
Right. Oh my gosh.
I mean,
I
can you
guess so.
start composing operas
Oh
by
my
14
gosh,
years
I
old?
know.
It's
He was just-
unbelievable.
Yeah.
This prodigy. His idol was Beethoven, and so he was so excited when he moved to Vienna because Beethoven had moved in from Bonn. So he was
Right.
just really very excited to meet him.
So in addition to seeing all this stuff, you guys got an education in terms of, little music backgrounds and
We did-
stuff like
right,
that.
and things that we didn't really know, or things we sort of heard of. Oh yeah, I remember that sort of.
Yeah.
And it's nice to get more information to fill in with, which was
Right.
real important.
It was
Right.
really overwhelming, so much information, and it's the history and the wars
Yeah.
and all
Well,
the
that's the
things
thing that
happened.
blows my mind, the number of
Yes.
wars that
Oh,
take
yeah.
place
Oh, my
over there,
gosh.
and all the destruction and
Yes.
rebuilding and
Yeah.
destruction
Yes.
and rebuilding again.
You sure
Right.
don't see it, do you?
No.
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 So anyhow, our next stop, I guess, was in Regensburg, Germany, and we had the usual walking tour there, and got to see the sights. And of course, there were the cathedrals and the churches, and all the kind of stuff you can keep repeating and repeating. And it was all fresh, but old by that
Yeah.
time, and we'd seen a lot of it. But we enjoyed it, and of course, we had a good guide again. But I think my highlight was eating at the oldest fast food restaurant in Europe. I mean, this is exciting
Wasn't
stuff.
McDonald's, was it?
No, they don't- no French fries.
No French
I
fries,
don't
no.
think
This
so.
was the you tell me.
I think it's called the Wurstkugel.
Wurstkugel.
Something like that,
yeah.
anyhow, restaurant right along the river. And if you sat down at the benches, you got a full meal. If you went over and lined up at a doorway,
Yeah.
you could get a sausage sandwich, which is what we did.
Okay.
And it was fabulous. And it was inexpensive, and it's another one of those great treats not to miss.
Right.
But we also went to a cuckoo clock demonstration.
Oh,
And the difference between now and 20 years ago when I was there, the price of the cuckoo clocks are way up.
oh,
Way up.
yeah, I'll bet.
So, but it was very interesting, and we went from there. And one thing, one of those new things that most people don't realize about river cruises, we took a picture of, and for nearly half the trip, we had had to go under low bridges.
Right.
And when they'd come up towards a low bridge, they would lower the wheelhouse about
So-
5 feet.
So the whole house would come
The whole thing
come
would
down.
come down, and then the guy
Hydraulic
would pop
Really?
his head out of a hatch and guide the ship under the bridge. Now,
Really?
behind us on this ship, the second part of the ship, the sun deck was raised up. Well, there was a railing around that all had to come down for half of the trip. Made a difference, but I mean, this is something you don't really know about,
Right.
like the locks, and we just take it for granted after a while. But you could reach up from the chair you were sitting in and touch the bridge as you went under it.
Really?
Yeah.
So people talk about high water problems with boats and low water problems.
Yeah.
It goes both ways. But
Right.
we picked the right time of the year.
Right.
That's great.
Right.
Yeah, I know a couple that went over and they couldn't cruise because the rivers were too high.
Right. We
So
could
they
see,
bust
we
them,
could see that
basically.
happening. Right. We could see that happening as we had everything lowered while we were doing that part of the river.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
That was very interesting. I want to add one more little thing here, that this city of Regensburg is a UNESCO site again, and Germany has 41 of those UNESCO World Cultural Sites out of 800 in the whole world. I
Wow.
thought that was pretty impressive to have that many just in that in that one city.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
they're a small city of 140,000, but 1 in 5 are university students. And we found that in several other cities,
Wow.
1/3 to 1/5 are in school.
That's
we thought
fantastic.
that was impressive
Yeah,
to
it
us.
sure is.
Just because we don't think about that, over here at all. But it was
Right.
interesting to find that out.
So what's your next city?
Well, we went past Koblenz, and wanted to mention that because
You didn't
that-
stop there?
No, we
Oh.
did not. One of those things we skipped.
Well, we did, except
oh.
we went up to
That's
Marksburg
true.
Castle.
That's
If we
true.
had not taken another side trip, we would have been able to go
Okay.
into the town of Koblenz to take a tour, to walk around. But we went up to this old castle, which Ron will tell you about.
Yeah, we had a 5-hour round trip to get up to the Marksburg Castle, which is the oldest continuously occupied castle in Europe. And it was very well laid out with things from that era. And I tried on one of the helmets for jousting and whatnot, and it was probably my best picture.
Yeah.
But it was claustrophobic, it was cold, and it pinched my ears, so I wouldn't do it again.
And what happens if somebody hits you beside the head with a sword or
Oh
something?
man,
Yeah,
you'd be
Your
ringing
ears
a
will be
while.
ringing for about
Yeah.
a month, right?
Right.
Yeah, it was
Was ver-
nothing I want to do.
Very well preserved castle for being as old as it was. It
Yeah.
was like over 2,000 years old, and it was. And from there we went on to Cologne, which is a very large
Oh.
German city.
Did you
And
go to the church?
We did go to the church. It was beautiful.
The cathedral in
The
Cologne is
cathedral- it
probably
was
the
just-
biggest church I've ever
It
been in.
is. It was huge,
Yeah.
and we didn't spend as much. That was an aside. If you wanted to go in after we took our tours, we walked in. We decided just to walk around.
Right.
But it was just because we've been in a lot of churches. But Cologne was a beautiful city. It was separated by the river, by the Rhine, and there's bridges that connect it. It's one of the largest cities in Germany.
Right.
And so it was very, very modern on the one.
Well, it's
the side
modern
we were
because
on.
most of it was leveled in
Yes,
the Second World War.
93% of it was leveled.
Right.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
500,000 bombs were dropped on it.
Wow.
So there couldn't be much left of it. So
But they did avoid the church.
yeah, they did.
Yeah, it's
They-
amazing.
They did.
Yeah.
But from there, we were making our way into to Holland.
Yeah, and we finally got to our destination at Amsterdam, and on the day we got there, we took a bus walking and glass-topped boat ride tour through the town, which was interesting. And it's like a it's like Venice with canals everywhere. It's beautiful, beautiful city.
This is right in the city of Amsterdam?
right in Amsterdam, yeah.
right.
Okay.
And it's a hustling, bustling city, one of the highest population densities. Well,
Yeah.
Holland is one of the highest population density countries in the world.
Really?
And Amsterdam is very crowded. What we did see was a lot of cars and trams and buses on the streets, great transportation for getting around. And we saw a few bikes. We saw a home area that was just gorgeous in a courtyard that I had to take a picture of that was narrow homes but beautiful, and just a quiet courtyard area.
You have to mention that.
Did you get to the windmills? Did you get to
we
tour the
did.
windmills
We
at
did.
all?
Tour the windmills.
Our last day there, we took a bus tour, a separate tour out into the windmills, and we saw a wooden shoe factory, and we took a boat ride across the Zuider Zee. It was
Okay.
great.
Yeah.
It was great.
So, did you actually get inside some of these windmills and take
Yes.
a look at all the workings
one-
how it
We went-
works?
yes.
The one we did tour was a wood cutting,
Lumber.
a lumber
Lumber
cutting
mill.
windmill.
Really?
Takes
Yeah.
orders from all over the world for specially cut wood.
No kidding.
Yeah,
Right.
it
See,
was
the ones that
interesting.
we visited when we were over there were they just pumped water basically.
Oh, okay.
And of course, Holland is a lot of Holland is underwater.
Right.
So they were basically pumping water out of the low areas.
Okay.
And sadly, the majority of the old windmills, like the ones we visited, are gone.
Are they?
They were
Right.
shipped elsewhere or dismantled or whatever. And
Right.
there's modern windmills, but not nearly like there used to be the old windmills.
Just because of electricity and machinery that they've built since
Right.
then to make more efficient use of the more modern windmills.
The ones that we saw, all the gears were made out of wood, different kinds of wood.
Yeah,
I mean, it was like, wow.
Right.
It was amazing. They kept the art going, that's
Yeah.
for sure.
Right.
But we got to talk about bicycles, George.
Okay.
You can tell them that story, Gloria, but you would like to be there.
There are 500,000 bicyclists all going to work in the morning. That's their commute
This is in
in
Amsterdam.
Amsterdam.
Wow.
And there are over 1 million bicycles in the city, people that don't ride them to work but ride them afterwards.
Wow.
And so rush hour is bicycles, and the cars have to wait for the bicycles to go by. And the bicycles do not stop for anybody, so if you step out, they'll run you over. They're just everywhere, and that's just how they get around, which is awesome because they're always outside.
Really?
They're always exercising, but they have, instead of a high-rise car parking, it's high-rise bicycle parking.
So probably you don't see a lot of, can I say, stout people or fat people
No,
over
you
there.
don't.
They're all
You don't.
exercising.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
It was
I bought a
just
sweatshirt, and you have to get an extra large in my case because I'm a really big person compared to the average person
Right.
in that town.
right.
So you finished up your tour basically right there in Amsterdam.
We did.
And you spent some time,
Right.
basically walking around town and doing some.
Museums, Van Gogh and
Museums.
Rembrandt were from there.
Yeah.
And then the Anne Frank, house.
Okay.
Visited her house, took the tour of where they
Great.
hid for the 3 years. And
You didn't get to the red light district, did you?
we did walk through that. We did walk through that.
I just had to ask you that, Ron.
It's different than it was 20 years
Right, I was
ago.
just saying,
Much
yes,
better. The
it's
whole
but-
city is much better than it was.
Not as many people in the windows. Not as many ladies in the windows, I
Well, I
don't
don't
think.
know.
Well, you know what? We've just about hit the end of our time here, but I certainly want to thank you for coming in. It's been great,
thank you.
we're going to hopefully see a lot of great pictures as we go
hope
through
so.
this thing.
Good.
So,
Yeah.
Well, thank
thank
you
you
for
very
having
much
us.
for
This was
joining
fun.
us. It's great.
You're welcome.
Thank you.